alarm blared at 6 a.m., right on cue, and as soon as my feet hit the floor, I started preparing my brain for what I knew was ahead. Humiliation, put-downs, negativity. The message that my life was nothing but a joke, and that I didn't even deserve the oxygen I was using up. Here I go again, I groaned. The same thing, over and over. Remember the 1993 film Groundhog Day? That was my life, too, at least for a season. In the movie, a cynical weatherman named Phil, played by Bill Murray, was trapped in a personal time warp, the same day in the same small town of Punxsutawney. His life was filled with tension, and his thinking was cloudy. He was rude and impulsive, and he didn't know how to manage his own emotions. At first, Phil saw no escape, no clear way to change his circumstances. At the time, I felt just as stuck and every bit as cynical. I tried going to a community college right out of high school, but that just didn't work out. So I did what everyone else in Allentown did at the time. I took a job at a Pennsylvania steel mill in nearby Bethlehem. Yep, it was just like the Billy Joel song. Ultimately, working in a steel mill became my life. My dad worked there, right along with my uncles, cousins, and every other man I knew. And it was a good life, an honorable one. What I didn't realize was how harsh some of the people could be, which explained the stress my dad had to endure. The mill was filled with plenty of great folks, tattooed hulks, grizzled old guys, men and women who loved their families, right along with the bottom of the barrel, street fighters, the certifiably insane, and one of the worst bullies I'd ever met. It's no exaggeration to say that this particular guy seemed as if he stepped right out of a prison yard and onto the factory floor. The anguish that he felt from his own lot in life was constantly inflicted on everyone around him, especially on me. There was definitely a Shawshank Redemption vibe going on with him. I'll never forget my first day on the job. Since I was the fresh meat, this guy took pleasure in ripping me to shreds. Even though I grew up in the toughest part of Allentown, the 6th Ward, and in spite of the fact that I thought I'd seen it all, the misery of this specific individual at the mill was worse than anything I'd ever imagined. I remember thinking, man, high school was heaven compared with this hell. But I eventually fought back, and he never bothered me again. So, I settled into my life at the steel mill, and things smoothed out for a while. Soon, I met this pretty young lady who lived in Catasauqua, Pennsylvania, just outside of Allentown. She stood just under 5 feet tall, and her name was Lynn. We started dating, and quickly fell in love. I think you can figure out what happened next. We got married, had a couple of babies, and built a really good life together. Lynn and my kids were the bright spots of my life, the greatest blessings of all. The love and support I received from my family opened my eyes and my heart to all kinds of dreams swirling around in my head. Somewhere along the way, an unexpected interest began to take root inside me, a fascination with magic. Eventually, I met the owner of a magic shop who was willing to teach me some of the tricks of the trade. I was instantly blown away by his ability to fool the eye and so skillfully pull off various feats of illusion. This is it, I thought to myself. I'm going to become a magician, and one day, I'm going to entertain crowds coast to coast. The question was, how? I worked in a steel mill. Day after day, I'd roll into a parking space outside the mill and would just stare at the long line of workers filing in. As I relived my own Groundhog Day and steered clear of that Shawshank animal, I found myself feeling like yet another 90s movie character, Joe Banks, the discontented factory worker in the movie Joe versus the Volcano. The passive hypochondriac, played by Tom Hanks, yearned for adventure. More than anything, he wanted a life filled with meaning and purpose. Yet, he felt too sick and too stuck to do anything about it. Eventually, after being falsely diagnosed with an imaginary disease, a brain cloud, Joe mustered up the courage to flee his pointless existence. Do I have the courage to change my life too? I wondered. Or is this it? The best I'll ever be? The most I'll ever accomplish? Maybe life imitates art, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. But just like the anxious character in the movie, it took some unexpected challenges and a real health scare to change my world. They're closing all the factories down. First, I suffered.